That sparkle in your eye is gone.
Hey, I'm Dominic Waddles.
And I'm Mark Rosenblatt.
And this is the MDetroit Podcast.
MDetroit Podcast is an interview-based podcast about the artists, creators, and innovators of Detroit.
You're breaking.
So now listen to what we have in store for you this week. On this week's podcast, we have Buddy Budson and Ursula Walker. Mark, why don't you tell us about them?
Oh yeah, so Buddy Budson and Ursula Walker, the dynamic duo of Detroit. And they've been around for quite some time, absolutely killing it. In this podcast, we talk with Buddy about his playing with some of the biggest names in entertainment, Earl Clue, Buddy Rich, and with Ursula Walker, we talk about a bunch of the opportunities that she's had over the years as well. And with them, we talk about, them as a music duo, being a successful music duo, and how they continue doing that.
So without further ado, please enjoy this episode with Buddy Budson and Ursula Walker.
You ignore all the stars above you. I can't realize you.
Well, welcome to the MDetroit Podcast. We have Ursula Walker and Buddy Budson. Whoop, whoop. Woo woo.
Oh, thank you. Great to be here.
So the way that we do this podcast is we read you guys your bio. Since there's two of you, there's two bios. We're going to read two bios, and then we're going to ask you guys some questions, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
And I think Dom and I can just split up.
Yeah, I was going to say, you do Buddy, I'll do Ursula.
Okay, great. So Buddy Budson has been playing jazz piano around the Detroit area for the past 46 years, beginning at local clubs at the age of 15. In 1973, Buddy joined drummer Buddy Rich's big band, toured England, Australia, and then the United States and recorded an album with the band. Soon after, Buddy toured with both guitarist Earl Clue and the Motown group The Four Tops. He has also backed well-known performers including Henry Mancini, Mel Torme, Sammy Davis Jr., Marlena Shaw, Charles McPherson, and Steve Turre. When the Fox television network debuted in the late 80s, Buddy composed and arranged the theme song and much of the transitional music for the sitcom Duet. He has also done vocal and instrumental arrangements for big band and orchestra. Buddy is married to noted Detroit vocalist Ursula Walker, and together they perform at clubs and concerts throughout the Detroit metro area. They've also given many clinics at Detroit area schools and the University of Michigan, Michigan State University, and Wayne State University. Buddy is the recipient of the Metro Times Jazz Award and the Detroit Metro Area Musicians and Entertainers Association Teddy Harris Jr. Legendary Award.
And now Ursula Walker. Ursula Walker has been a mainstay of the Detroit music world for 54 years, beginning at the age of 11 on Detroit television and radio. Pursuing her career in her hometown while raising 4 children, her outstanding talents as a unique stylist of ballads, standards, and jazz gained her national recognition among her peers. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Ursula fielded many offers to tour nationally with many notable musicians such as Stan Kenton, the Harry James Band, Count Basie, and Tony Bennett. Over the years, she has performed at countless clubs, concerts, and festivals, frequently at the Detroit International Jazz Festival. She has opened for many well-known performers, including Dizzy Gillespie, Oscar Peterson, and Tanya Maria. Ursula has been the recipient of numerous awards and honors. Among them are Clio Award for Best Vocal Performance and Commercial Jingle, election to the Metro Times Jazz Hall of Fame, the Midwest Arts Legend and Jazz Hall of Fame Awards, the MCA Outstanding Musicians Awards, the Detroit Metro Area Musicians and Entertainers Association Teddy Harris Junior Legendary Award, and the 2007 Southern Christian Leadership Conference Aretha Franklin Award for Outstanding Achievement in the Performing Arts. They also have 2 wonderful, wonderful resumes that you sent.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Well, and if I might, I just want to correct one thing, because that was an older bio, and there's several floating out there. So, but the 46 years working around Detroit for me is actually 61, and for Ursula, the 54 that you mentioned is actually 70 years. And so it's just so that people don't get the impression that we're youngsters. We're not.
They look young to me.
Yeah. They're like jumping around the house, guys. Seriously.
Right.
Jumping off the walls right now.
Actually doing handstands right now. Handstands right now.
Yep.
And making cookies.
Yeah. In fact, can I tell you that I just celebrated on the 18th of this month my 80th birthday.
Wow.
Woo. I'm telling you, she does not look 80.
Maybe
Doesn't act
79. But
Right.
So, after hearing your guys' bios, is there anything that you would add or change? Besides, like, what
The
has been
age.
clarified. Yeah.
Well, there
think of
have been many things since then, but probably,
there are some things or add that I'd like to add. And when I was 12, I started singing with USO, United Service Organization, and we would entertain the servicemen downtown. And then occasionally they would send a bus to pick us up and drive us all the way out to Selfridge Air Force Base to entertain the servicemen there. And one year, they flew us to Escoda, Michigan. I guess I think it's Escoda. There's a camp there, and we entertained the servicemen there. So, and I think I was 12 when I started, and maybe 17 or 18 when I stopped, doing the USO shows. And then also, excuse me, at 12, I was offered a recording contract with Mercury Records. But the contract, they had complete control of my life. And so my parents wouldn't sign it, so I didn't do that. And then at 17, Barry Gordy asked me to join Motown Records. But by that time, I had heard people like Sarah Vaughan and Carmen McRae, and I said, that's the kind of music I want to do. So I said no to Barry Gordy.
That's the quote.
he was thrilled.
I said no to Barry Gordon.
Well, and if I could just interject, we don't know this for a fact, but he had written a song for her he wanted to sing, and this was just before Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell did their first duet, and it had a feeling that was what was in his mind.
Well,
Seeing
that's because Dave Vanderpit, who was an arranger at Motown, he told me that Marvin really liked the way I sang, and he wanted to do something with me. So, but because I turned Barry Gordy down, I didn't get a chance to sing with Marvin. That would have been a pleasure, singing with him.
All right, so, Buddy, how about starting and playing in clubs at 15?
Yeah, well, It wasn't exactly legal, but everybody did it back then. And if you didn't, of course, you had to make sure you didn't drink.
Right.
But I guess that was pretty young. But just there were a lot of clubs on the east side of Detroit at that time, around East Warren and Mac, and worked a bunch of those trios.
Mm-hmm. Were you playing? What kind of music were you playing? You were playing.
It was all standards, but I was playing rock and roll stuff in high school. The usual, like VFW dances and that's what everybody was doing back then, I guess. And those were not as much fun as in the clubs, just standards, and trying to learn tunes. It was always amazing how many tunes there were to learn. I'm still learning tunes, actually.
Were you playing with people like your age or older?
I was playing with people older, but when I first started doing that, it was, I have to say, it wasn't with people who were really, some were pretty good, but I was playing with more of the ones that weren't really great players. I eventually graduated to that, but I remember working with a trio where where the bass player, his concept of playing the upright bass was to just place his fingers on the fingerboard wherever. Wherever they fell, that was the note.
I'm sure it was. There's a vibe.
Yeah,
a certain direction where the music went.
Yes, but he sang. See, that was it, and it was his group.
Oh, okay.
So
there you. That's usually kind of how it is. I feel like
Wait. So, so he's
if the
singing,
bass player, if the bass
and
player
he's playing whatever roots he wants to play.
Right, yeah.
And you're
it's an
15-year-old.
interesting concept. Yeah.
So how did you manage to maneuver the chords that he wanted to play?
I just played what I thought was right and let him fall where he may.
Was the audience into it at all?
Right.
Was the audience into it?
In those days, the audience, I don't think the audience really kind of knew what was going. It wasn't, jazz audiences in those days in real jazz clubs. Now, these weren't really jazz clubs. They were lounges where they had music,
Yeah.
And most everybody in those days were playing standards, but it wasn't really like jazz clubs where you'd go and hear, great jazz players.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think the audience knew. If it had been the real audience of the day, they wouldn't have been there.
Gotcha. Just slowly file into a line and walk out the door. Ursula, can you talk a little bit about, you already mentioned a little bit how you started on TV. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of got to that point? Like, how did you start like singing and getting attention and was able to get people to like be like, oh, we need her on TV?
Well, actually, to go back when I was a toddler, we lived in an apartment building, and across a very narrow and short hallway, our neighbor studied classical piano. And my mother said I would stand there at the door and just listen, so intently, probably thinking, oh, what is that beautiful sound, I'm hearing. And and we listened to radio all the time. All day we had the radio on, so we were hearing music. And hearing this music, wasn't television, so it was, you couldn't see the person. All you could hear was their voice and what they were singing, and hopefully the story they were telling. And so I really got involved in music. I mean, it was just what I wanted to do. I wanted to sing. So when I was 11 years old, a friend of my mother said, "Why don't you have Ursula audition for the Auntie D show?" Well, we didn't have a TV, so we didn't know what the Auntie D show was. So my mother found out, and so she sent in, a request for an audition. So I went, and it was funny because I just stood there and sang the song. I can't even remember what it was, but they said, "Ursula, you're going to be on television and people will be seeing you, so you got to be more animated, So when we left, I told my mother, "But I'm singing a song, I'm telling a story. Why do I have to be animated, And so I got another card from them giving me another audition date. Mm-hmm. So I went, and the song that I picked, I really overdid it. It was, your audience can't see it, but you guys can see it. Be a beggar, be a thief, be my sunshine or my grief. So I really hammed it up. And so they said, "Okay, you can do the show." But once I got on the show, I just stood there and sang the song. Because to me, that was the important thing. Get the music and telling the story. Mm-hmm. And so I did that show for 3.5 years. And actually, there's a video, and there's a TV show called Early Detroit Television. And there, they show Soupy Sales and some of the other WXYZ, mm-hmm. Performers. And there's one of me. They show me singing Over the Rainbow. Mm-hmm. And then the guy that made the show, or that did the producer of the show, interviewed me, and I was telling him about singing and how important it was to me, mm-hmm. and hearing beautiful music and how it inspired me. And so after that show ended, then I decided to audition for the Don Large Chorus, WGR Radio. So I went from television to radio. Mm-hmm. Usually people go from radio to television. Mm-hmm. But so I auditioned for Don Large Chorus, and I sang in the chorus for 5 years. And when that show ended in 1961, they asked me to stay on and do a Saturday morning show. And so I did that show for 1.5 years. It was Saturday mornings, 7 to 12, live with quintet.
And what year was this?
It was, let me think. I was 21 or 22.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what year was that? It was 50. No, 50.
So it was, when was it?
Uh-oh.
It was like the end of the 60s, maybe?
Yeah.
Or maybe the very beginning of the 70s.
But that was live radio.
And they were iconic radio shows in Detroit. I mean, live entertainment on the radio. Like she said, there's a quintet backing backing them, and the arrangements were just stellar. I mean,
Yeah, some of the Jimmy Lance, who was a WGR announcer and personality, Jimmy Lance and Dale McCarran, they did all the talking, and then we had Jimmy Clark. He was the band leader. He played piano and saxophone, and then we had a saxophone, trumpet, guitar, bass, and drums. And then there was a male singer, Tim Johnson, and we would alternate doing solos. But I remember one time, though, one of the musicians, I don't know, he did something, and we were all laughing during a break. And then when we came back, I was up to sing a ballad, and I started singing, and I looked over at him, and I started laughing. So I laughed, and then I composed myself, and then maybe sang another phrase, and then started laughing again. So I laughed almost through the whole song. And they were kind of upset. The director was kind of a little upset, you know. But then, during our next break, someone came in and says, "Ursula, you have a phone call." So when I got to the phone, it was a lady, and she said, "I had to call you and thank you." She said, "I was sitting here writing this letter and feeling very down and depressed, and I heard you laughing, and I ended up laughing with you, and I had to call you and thank you." So,
Wow.
so
That's so touching.
Even in the times that you mess up,
Yeah.
you still touch people's hearts.
yeah,
and can you believe somebody could actually call the radio station live?
Yeah.
There was a
That's
time.
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Call 1-800 XYZ.
yeah. So,
Buddy, since you mentioned arranging, how did you get started arranging and reharming? Because you are very known for that.
Oh, well,
And your
thank you. Well, I didn't, and I really always regretted that I didn't study that formally, you know. And of course, the programs at Wayne State, now, well, all of everywhere, really, Michigan State and U of M, and, you know, but they just have such great programs for that. But I just kind of, you know, acquired it little by little, as far as the arranging, the big band stuff. But there's the story. I have to say involves Ursula, because when she sang for 21 years with the Brookside Jazz Ensemble, 21-piece big band. And so I thought, well, I'll start arranging some stuff for her. And the first, you guys, I don't know if you might remember this. There was a group called, was it Emerson, Lake and Palmer?
Yeah.
Was that the group? I'm trying to think, but there was a well-known tune that they did called Roundabout.
Was that Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or is that Yes?
It was Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. See, there you go. But so I liked that tune, so I thought, and we had been doing some like bar cover stuff.
yeah, you have to tell them about that.
Yeah, but anyway, so this was my very first arrangement that I ever did of that
Big
tune,
band,
Roundabout, and I brought it to the rehearsal, and one of the guys said to me after rehearsal, you know, Buddy, we're horn players, and you know we have to breathe. You know? It's like just end to end, you know, stuff. You know, and but I mean, I you know, you learn from everything you do, and years later, I read in a biography of Henry Mancini that he had the same experience, similar. I'm sure he started out as a better arranger than I did, but he started arranging for Benny Goodman, hired him because he'd heard about this great guy from Pittsburgh. And in his first bunch of arrangements, Benny would not use because he said, you know, it's just, we just like to have some nice breathable, you know, or, you know,
Breathable
and
charts.
he said he learned from that also. You know how to. He said from that point on, he started making his stuff just playable, breathable, simple. You know, and he was noted for that stuff. But anyway, that was the beginning of it, and then I just kind of learned as I went. And the reharmonizing thing, I always loved doing that. It was something that I really enjoyed doing. So,
he
and that's another
very
thing,
well.
I guess.
Very, very
He does so well.
Musicians.
But you got to tell them the story before that. How we first started working together, and you did all the vocal arrangements.
Oh yeah,
We'll get to there.
Okay.
We'll get to there.
Okay.
Ursula, you mentioned that you entertained like service men and women for the USO.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Because it says in the resume that you sent us that you did it for 7 years. Is that true? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, like I said, it was downtown. The USO was downtown, and there were like 4 or 5 what they call units, entertainment units, and each unit had, you know, singers, tap dancers, baton twirlers, piano players, and you know, and I joined Ruby Jones' unit, and we would go down on Sunday afternoon, and we would, excuse me, entertain the servicemen. Well, you know, they had the USO. They always had they had like ping pong tables for the guys to play, and they would sit and play cards, and they would have refreshments for them, and then we would come in and entertain them. And whenever when we'd go to out to Selfridge Air Force Base, it was like I said, they would send a bus to pick us up, and we'd ride this bus. And in the winter, there wasn't much heat in that bus. It was pretty cold, and it was a bumpy ride. It was like, whoa, you know, you felt like you were on an amusement ride, you know. And you know where Selfridge Air Force Base is. It's way out.
Mount Clemens.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cold.
And so from downtown Detroit out to the base,
Hour and
you
a
know.
half.
So it was a long ride. But the thing is, at that time, my parents and I lived on Hancock between Beaubien and St. Antoine. And the bus would take everyone else downtown to the USO. But my mother and I would get off where East Grand Boulevard, Gratiot, and Warren would meet. And we would catch the Warren bus. We would stand at the bus stop at, I don't know, probably around 10 o'clock at night. We would stand there and wait for the Warren bus so it could drop us off, you know, at Warren and Beaubien. So we wouldn't have to ride all the way downtown. But it was the servicemen, they were always very appreciative, you know, of our being there. And after a while, the same unit started playing at Jackson Prison. We would play for the inmates there. And sometimes the guys would get a little mouthy and start saying something, you know, to the girls, the entertainers, the dancers, you know. And Ruby Jones, she was just a little lady. More, I think she was 5 feet, and she would go and stand at the mic, and she said, "Now you guys, you better behave yourselves, you know." It was so funny.
Yeah, tell them about the one guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, there were always some of the inmates backstage, and this one guy, he came over and spoke to me. He was a white guy, and he had, white hair, but he was so soft-spoken, and he says, I enjoyed your music, and I said, well, thank you, So I asked someone after he left, I said, who is that man, And they says, oh, he was on the Purple Gang. And they told me his name. Do you know who the Purple Gang is?
Who's Purple Gang?
The Purple Gang.
The Jewish.
That was
a
the
Jewish
gang from Detroit that
Yeah.
ruled Detroit during the bootleg era. They were a Jewish gang.
Yeah.
And they were notorious for their viciousness. And the story is that Al Capone's gang in Chicago would kind of do things with other gangs around, but he would not mess with the Purple Gang.
Yeah. But he was so soft-spoken and so, just old man. And when they told me he was a member of the Purple Gang, I didn't know who they were, but I read about them later and found out.
That's crazy.
You learn
That
something
was-
every day. The Purple Gang.
Yeah.
Run in Detroit.
Yeah.
Bootleg.
They would transport booze from Canada to Detroit. That was
Yeah,
the big
Windsor
thing.
to Detroit. And if I just something quick, one thing is when she started singing with the USO, that was the end of the
Korean.
It was in the last year of the Korean War, which was the first war that Truman integrated the armed services during that war. But even so, I don't think you saw many black soldiers.
No, I didn't.
No.
I never thought about it, at the time, being a young girl. But years later, I thought, it's really odd. I don't remember seeing any black servicemen downtown. I saw some out at Selfridge, but not down in the downtown. And I thought,
I was going to ask, or we're kind of going to go on to questions for both of you. But that's really interesting that in Detroit, I guess just a different time period, I guess, with just all white servicemen. But if you go to Selfridge, just trying to think of when did it fully integrate? Like the armed services where all places were represented, all races.
Definitely not during that time.
Yeah.
no.
I was going to say when it first started, it probably would have taken about 10, 15 years, almost.
Right.
Generation.
Right.
Yeah.
Officially, but
Yeah.
nothing happens right away, that's for sure.
Takes time.
Yeah.
But moving on, playing with greats for the both of you. Who were your favorite greats to play with over the years?
In your bios, it didn't really mention everybody, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, like
you mentioned you're getting calls from Barry Gordy.
Barry Gordy, and
so
then
I mean, you didn't play with him obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah.
if you guys can talk a little bit about
Well, I
playing with
never
various.
sang with Aretha, but I always loved her and admired her. And she was very kind to me and Buddy.
Yeah.
She really was. We would sing at her house, at Christmas parties, and I remember one man says, Aretha. This was when I, in between my songs, and they said, Aretha, when are you going to sing? When are you going to sing? And he says, Ursula is singing now.
As only Aretha could.
She and I got to tell her the story about Erica.
My gosh.
Do you remember when Aretha recorded with was it George?
George Michael.
George Michael.
They did a duet.
Do you
Big
remember
hit.
that?
Wow.
I
Yeah.
think they were too young.
Well, we
We're familiar with. I'm just familiar with the song.
Yeah. Oh, are you? Okay.
And my memory is names of songs and musicians. It's starting to go.
But Buddy and I went to Aretha's and to sign some papers or something. Anyway, Erica, we took our daughter Erica,
but she was little at the time.
Yeah, she was little, and she liked George Michael's his singing, you know. So then she asked Aretha, "Did you enjoy working with George Michael's?" And Aretha says, yeah, it was fun, you know. And then years later, Erica said, "I can't believe I asked Aretha Franklin."
How was it working with George Michael?
Same with George Michael.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because later on, she went to Oberlin her first 2 years of college, and she had a radio show. You know, she dabbled in that. They had a R&B and soul music radio show at the college station. That was her slot was 5 o'clock in the Sunday morning. You know, and she used to say the only people listening were people who had been students who had been out partying all night, still up, or farmers just getting up. But you know, and she used to play a lot of Aretha, you know, amongst other people. And when she looked back on that, she was.
That's awesome.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
What about you, buddy? What are some? Can you talk a little bit about some greats that you played with over the years?
I definitely want to hear about this Buddy Rich.
Oh my God! Well, I have to tell you the story when I met Buddy, because one of the jazz trumpet player, the jazz chair on the band was Greg Hopkins, who was a great trumpet player he grew up in Berkeley, Michigan.
Okay.
And in fact, he did some great arrangements for Ursula because he was in the Brookside band before he left to go out on the road with Buddy. And there's a couple of great arrangements that he did for Ursula. But anyway, he did a lot of arranging for Buddy's band. But anyway, he got me on the band, and I met the band at the airport. And it was a hot July day, and we were going, the first gig, we were going to take a bus to Kalamazoo. That was the first gig that I did with him. And so he brought me on the bus, and at the time, this was 1973, and I had real long hair down my back. I had a full beard and mustache, and my passport picture, to me, I looked like Charles Manson, you know. That was, and I had on a tank top. It was just like 90 degrees, you know, and so the guys were in the band were getting their luggage and stuff, but he brought Buddy on the band, and so he brought Buddy up to me and said, "Buddy, meet Buddy," and Buddy didn't say hello. He kind of looked me up and down, and I don't know what kind of language I can use on the podcast.
You can say whatever you want.
We check the no kids box.
Can you block it out? If I give you the exact phrase he said?
I mean, you know, it's if you don't want us to mention it, then we won't. But if you're okay with the public,
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Go for it.
No, he looked me up and down, and he says, "This ain't no fucking blood, sweat, and tears, you know." And then he walked away. I said, nice to meet you too, buddy.
Oh, my God.
And that was my initial meeting with him. So it was something. But he was.
Did they get better?
Huh? Oh yeah. I mean, he was a great drummer, of course, you know. And but the thing that I didn't particularly like was he was kind of the old style with 4 on the floor with the kick drum, you know, like taking over some of the bass function, and it kind of bothered me playing, you know. So that was one thing, and he was always very showy and stuff, you know. And actually, the best that he sounded was when he was a little high, and then he would calm down. And of course, everybody knows about his technique. It's flawless. But to me, his greatest work was brushwork on ballads and stuff, because he had every nuance down, and it was just, and that part of it was just incredible. But he was, he had that outsized personality, and he was very kind of nasty, I mean, that was his thing, and I think after playing years and years with all the great musicians, and now he was doing these tours with the bands with all the young guys from colleges and stuff, and it was like, I don't think it was his favorite thing, but it was, that's what he was doing, making him money, and he had to be the guy in charge. So.
When did you both meet, and then when did you guys start to become a duo?
Well, we started out working at a restaurant, Duffy's, that was in Union Lake. Union Lake. And, well, actually, what happened, Jeff Steinberg, and who also did some great arrangements, big band arrangements for me, he and his partner, Jeff Parsons, asked me if I would ever think of working with a group, doing some pop tunes. And so they took me out to this club where Buddy was working, and I heard his trio. It was Buddy, Ron Childress on bass, and Mike Richey on drums. So I said okay, that might be fun to do that. So we got together, and Buddy did all of the arranging, all the vocal parts and everything. Mm-hmm. And we rehearsed it, and then we started working at this restaurant, and then it just grew from there.
Yeah, we three of us sang, so they were 3-part vocal arrangements. So we would do covers of the tunes of the day, Fifth Dimension, Three Dog Night,
Sly
Family Stone, and I sang one of the parts, not well, and
it was better than the bass player. It was better.
No, actually, the bass player
was a good singer.
He was a good singer, and the drummer didn't sing. Yeah.
But then we started working other gigs, from there, and then it happened.
Dom just looked at me, just like.
Yeah, so we started working a lot of, just gigs like everybody worked around town, and clubs. Used to work a lot of clubs back in the days when every restaurant had a group. I mean, didn't have to be a jazz club. Every restaurant had a trio or a piano player or a duo or even more.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, that's not the case anymore.
Not the case.
Yeah.
Thanks, COVID.
Well, not even COVID, man. Just like pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
go like Hopcat. There's no music at Hopcat.
No,
it's funny because it's like right next to Hopcat in Midtown. Is that Woodward and like. I don't know, what's that road? It's just like Midtown, like downtown, like Midtown, Right now, you guys know where the Whitney is, right?
Yeah.
The Whitney. So the Whitney plays live music all the time. And then right next to the Whitney is the Hopcat. It's kind of like a...
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like they just play like music on the radio or whatever,
Even though they do have the space for it.
Yes.
The what?
They have the space for it, like a perfect kind of space.
Yeah.
There's always room to squeeze in a group.
Right.
There's an upstairs, I think. Maybe
We've been some of the smallest spaces you've ever seen with
Bernardi's.
a trio.
Remember
God,
Bernardi's?
my gosh,
We were
yeah.
lined up along the front window.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
That's
Piano.
amazing. There's a
I could
place-
actually see that picture. It's just like, all right.
what's
Yeah.
Can't move for an hour. Just saying. Just saying.
There's another place in Midtown that has a really small stage. I'm trying to think. It's
Bakers.
the no, it's even smaller than Baker's. It's even smaller.
Smaller than
Lord.
Baker's?
Yeah,
Oh my
smaller than
goodness.
Baker's. Because Baker's, you can fit like a drum set, a piano. You can stretch out a little bit. You know, you can
Oh.
put some people on there. Ah, man, I'm trying to think. It's not the Whitney. It's somewhere else. I'll remember it later.
You'll shout it out there.
Yeah.
But you both write lyrics to bebop tunes and
Yes.
tunes in general. So explain that for us.
Yeah, well, over the years, there were tunes that I'd hear, and I thought, boy, if they only had a lyric, you know. And so we started writing lyrics. The first one I wrote was Wayne Shorter's Footprints.
Oh wow.
And then, then the other one is background music. Are you familiar
Oh,
with
she
that?
did a great.
Is that a Lenny Tristano song?
It's well, you're in the right group.
Oh, sorry. What's his face? Yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't remember. Saxophone. Yeah, but there's two. There's Warren Marsh.
Warren
and then-
Marsh.
Warren
Okay,
Marsh.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Warren Marsh tune written on All of Me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great line.
Yeah.
You've heard the tune, right? And a lot of notes, so a lot of words.
Yeah.
And she wrote a really, you know, in the tradition of, all the, John Hendricks or whatever.
And the other one was what's
word?
God, I can't think of the name. Here in the Quiet Night,
Contemplation.
Contemplation.
McCoy Tyner.
Liverpool Tynerton. Yeah.
lyric for Contemplation.
And then ballad.
Back,
Oh, that is
That
such a
ballad.
good tune.
Yeah.
and
the Don
Because you have
Stesky.
Wayne Shorter's take
Oh.
on Contemplation, and
Yeah.
then McCoy Tyner's version of Contemplation. It's just
Yeah.
like, wow.
I think it's more. I think it's McCoy Tyner's
McCoy's
version of it.
more-
Yeah. And then I wrote a lyric for actually Don Sebesky wrote a tune off of Rachmaninoff's.
Thunderbird is the Thunderbird Suite or Firebird or something, right?
No, this
Not
is
that one.
Oh, that's Stravinsky. But
yeah.
It was
Close enough.
Second Symphony.
Of the third
Third movement of the
of
Second
Symphony.
And
And I just, when I heard it, I did Rachmaninoff's vocalese with the Detroit Symphony once for a musician. It was a fundraiser for a musician. And at that time, I was working at Jack Brokenshaw, and he asked me if I would consider doing it, so I did. And I just fell in love with Rachmaninoff. And so when I heard this tune, I told Buddy, I said, and especially after we heard Don Sebesky's, play on it, I wrote a lyric for that. And that took me a while because of the form.
strange form.
But I finally did it, and I love it. I love it. Oof. It's just, and I'm thinking of doing one on Con Alma. I love that. So that's why I started doing it, because tunes that I heard that I loved, but I wish they had a lyric. So I said, well, I'll have to write it.
what's the process like? How do you
Well,
do it?
my process is that, okay, you take I was trying to think of the name of it, the tune. Oh, da da dum dee da da. Here.
Oh,
okay.
Contemplation.
Yeah.
I would like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Da 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 dee da da. Then the next one, ba 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 dee ba da da, ba 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 dee ba ba da, ba 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 dee ba da ba ba da ba. And I would just, I'd have an idea in my mind, because of that tune, I always thought it would be a great love song. Here in the quiet night, filled with anticipation, knowing that soon you'll be here, longing to kiss you and hold you so near. So I do it the way the melody and
the structure is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard. Like that, the one, the Rachmaninoff's piece, that one was really hard. Because how does it go? Let me see.
Well, because of the rhyme scheme too.
Yeah.
To get a rhyme scheme and most of the stuff that we've done use rhyme schemes. Although more modern stuff, but maybe doesn't. But in the old tradition, it did with those jazz standards and regular standard tunes. And I think we both feel it's important, except in certain situations. But to get the scheme down right,
Yeah. I
and
definitely
preserve
think
the
it's
integrity
important
of
to,
the phrase.
Someone, when I mentioned that before, says, "Oh, but that's not jazz. You can change that for jazz." But I feel if I'm going to write a lyric off of someone of a tune that someone has written, I want to use their melody, and I mean then when you're performing it, you can change it, But if I'm going to write a lyric, I want it to be true to what they wrote, and
most of the great lyric writers of the past, but that was the thing, is that you, especially if there's already a melody that exists,
yeah.
And also if the melody comes first, whether it's an individual writing both, in rare cases in the old days, or if the melodic line came first, you honor the melody first, and you don't change the phrasing to make it. You don't change the melody to make it fit your phrase. And a lot of people do that, and especially with doing the kind of thing that we're doing when you're doing it on a jazz instrumental. It's like, well, I can't, this is a great phrase and I can't fit it in exactly. You add a note, or you change where the thing that really irritates me to no end is changing where the syllable that the accent falls on, because you lose the meaning of the story. So the whole thing is to keep the integrity of the melody that was written by the composer at all costs.
And that Rachmaninoff speech, that was the hardest. It took me a while to get it just right.
I was going to say, Rachmaninoff is played a lot in the house. It's played a lot in the house. That's one of me and my dad's favorite composers.
Oh yeah.
Me and him, we bond over like Rachmaninoff, Chopin a great deal. Brahms, his first piano concerto. Many others, but Rachmaninoff is very expressive.
Oh yeah, very. I love it. I love
and
his music.
This is just a quick story, but his first piano concerto, I believe it's the first, but he introduces this grand theme. It goes boom, dum, bing, boom, boom, be da da do, be da dee dee da da da.
Yeah, they made a standard tune out of
that. And then it just disappears. He never references it ever again in the whole thing. It's just like
it's the same with the tune that we were talking about, the ballad that Don Sebesky took and that Ursula wrote lyrics. He does the same thing with that. If you listen to the to the Rachmaninoff thing, the beginning of the third movement of the Second Symphony, that melody just kind of comes in at the beginning, and
Yeah.
same as that,
Yeah.
it disappears. You never. I don't think you ever hear it again in the whole movement.
Right.
But it was so strong.
right.
You know, it was so
Da da da
strong.
dee da da. Da 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 dee da da. Da 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 dee dee dee. Da 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 da. It's, whew,
You guys hear that?
it's
Take it in.
yeah.
And I just have to add something that in praise of Ursula, but you know, the thing that she is noted for, I would say more than anything, and rightly so, is her phrasing, her sense of phrasing, and especially on anything but the ballads, you know, are just and it's because there, to my mind, are only a few singers that do it at that level, and to where the story becomes so prominent and emotional because of the way the lyric is phrased. And I know she always tried to instill her students with that. But it sounds like an easy thing, but it's really not. To get that just, you know. And so when she would sing any tune, you know, and I'm thinking especially of ballads, like never in the tune would the melody be sung the same way, you know, either at a different time or within the tune, you know, doing the in chorus or the out chorus. You know, it's just that there are so many ways to do it really well, you know.
Yeah.
So
Can you guys talk a little bit about like mentoring? Because I know you guys have done a lot of that,
Yeah.
and what kinds of things you can kind of pass on to the younger musicians that are learning, or you know, any thoughts you have on mentoring and whatnot.
Well, I always tell the young vocalists, well, first of all, not just the vocalists, but the musicians, take care of your hearing. If you're playing in the music, it's too loud, and you start getting pain in your ears, because both of us wear hearing aids now, 2 hearing aids. Take care of your hearing. If the band you're playing with, if they're too loud, get some kind of they have little things you can put in your ear.
the ear protectors.
Yeah, do that. And with singers, because I sang with this 20-piece band, and they played so loud sometimes that it was crazy, you know. And I ended up having some hearing loss, you know, because of that. And that's the first thing I tell them: take care of your hearing. And the next thing, don't, you know, I'll have them sing a line, and I'll tell them, I said, hold back, you know. I said, the thing about singing a lyric, you know, changing it up, is you go forward, and then you have to hold back. If you hold back, then you got to catch up. You know, try that. You know, and like you take a lyric. The very thought of you makes my heart sing. You know, the very thought of you makes my heart sing. Like an April breeze on the wings of spring. Or the very thought of you makes my heart sing. Like an April breeze on the wings of spring, you know. So, and some of them, if they learn the tune like a certain way, it was very difficult for them to change, you know. And I told him, don't be afraid to change up, you know, your phrasing of a song. Take one song and change it up. And I'm hoping eventually, in fact, I know there was one girl that definitely got it. But you know, because in learning a new tune, I tell them, don't take someone else's version of it and learn it. I say, get the music and learn it the way the composer, you know, wrote it, and then change it up. But don't, if you listen to someone else's version, you're going to end up singing it the way they sing it. You don't want to do that. You want to be an individual, you know. So some of them had a hard time following that, you know. They learned it that one way and they couldn't.
Yeah, they're like stuck in the box.
Yeah.
Of the recording.
Yeah.
I totally understand that, because what is it? I was learning this one. I was listening to Frank Sinatra, and I was just like, okay, what should I? Let me listen to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then it's very difficult because, you know, Ella might do it different than Sinatra, or Sarah Vaughan might do it.
Yeah.
She did stuff way different than Ella.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because Sarah, I feel like Sarah was more aggressive with the songs than Ella. Ella was very more,
Yeah.
of course, commercial, because that was just what the position she was put in. So, yeah, I really agree with that.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah. Because I remember, in fact, when I turned Berry Gordy down. I remember hearing Sarah Vaughan on a recording, and I thought, ooh, that lady can really sing. You know, I liked the way she was phrasing, how she was using her voice, using her vibrato. You know,
But it seemed like for her, she was just like, there's no limits.
no,
I'm gonna use everything I can possibly use.
yeah,
In singing all these standards. I can't remember what standard it was, but I think it was Nobody Else But Me or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But she just tears it up.
Yeah.
She can be soft, she can be loud, she
Yeah.
can be medium, she can be all.
yeah. Well, that's what it is.
But
The one that really had the phrasing though was
Carmen McRae.
Yeah.
She really had the phrasing.
Yeah.
To
And
suck everything
like
out
you
of the
mentioned,
song.
Frank Sinatra with Tony Bennett.
Mel Torme too.
Yes. But Tony Bennett was my favorite.
Yeah.
He was my favorite, you know.
Right before we move on, there's this Kurt Elling. He's my favorite
Yeah.
one right now.
Yeah.
Because he sings Resolution.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, he has that buzz. You
Yeah.
know how saxophone players have a buzz if they play like an auto link or something like that? He has that buzz in his voice. I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's either you're born with it or you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And he's
super
just-
cool because he also does he transcribes a solo and then write lyrics.
Yeah.
Right.
Sings
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And to tunes like that, Resolution and
Right.
Yeah.
That Wayne Shorter tune. Not night concert. That's an Errol Garner thing.
Oh, yeah.
I know which
Yeah.
one you're the waltz.
Yeah.
Night Dreamer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dreamer. There you
Yeah.
go.
Love
Yeah.
that tune too. That's a great tune.
And then he gets on stage and he just looks like a rock star.
Yeah.
He has the hair.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I'm
Yeah.
about to kill this. But kind of moving on.
This next section is called Hip the Listener, and this is where we have you, the guest, hip the listeners to anything, whether it be music, art, events, movies, documentaries, whatever you want. Hip the listener.
Hip, hip, hip.
Yep.
Yeah. So let us know, anything.
Hip the listener on something that
Anything you
we're
like.
doing or
Anything.
want to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, you're like, you should check this out. If you were to recommend something to somebody.
Oh, recommend something.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. I can't think of anything.
Well, get hip to Ursula Walker then.
Yeah.
Well, I would say there's so many things to listen to. I mean, it's just I'd say Coltrane box sets from the era before the more outside stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All of the Miles stuff from that era, starting from the very beginning. Now for me, talking about liking noir film, I'd say some of if you like the photography and everything that has to do with the visual thing in black and white film and just the vibe of that era of film, check out the classic noir films, like starting with one of my favorites called Out of the Past, Robert Mitchum film. And one of the scenes in it, like all of a sudden you hear this loud, high trumpet thing because they're in a jazz club where he's starting his investigation, and it's just they never gave credit to these bands in these films usually, and you have to really dig to find out. But it was a real young Gerald Wilson.
Oh wow!
And playing with a like a quintet or something in this jazz club, and so many of those films featured, because it was part of jazz was part of the thing that they thought was dark and moody, and so a lot of the stuff was and some of it was about. So some of them were about jazz stuff. Rachmaninoff.
Yeah.
Check out Rachmaninoff stuff. One of Ursula's favorite genres to listen to is Latin stuff. She's listening to Latin stuff constantly. And whenever she would get ready for a gig, on would go Joe Henderson's Lush Life album.
Thank you for remembering.
Yeah. All these things are there. We just got to think of them.
Yeah.
And I would listen, like when I'm cleaning sometimes, I'll put this Latin CD. It was
actually the Latin Real Book.
Yeah, the Latin Real Book
thing that like the CD that went along with that. But there's some great stuff on there.
Yeah, and I've put that on and listen to it while I'm cleaning, or if I just want to dance around, I'll put it on.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't be the dance partner because that's the second thing I'm in the Guinness Book for, is the world's worst dancer.
Well, it's subjective, honestly, so.
Not with me. You would back me up on that, wouldn't you?
No.
No?
No.
Oh.
I don't think you're the worst.
Not the worst?
No. No way.
No. You've seen worse.
I've seen worse.
Well, we're going to hit you guys with some rapid fire questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. So, starting with the first one, we have Confucius said you have 2 lives. The second one starts when you realize you only have one. When did you start your second life?
When I met Ursula.
When I met Buddy.
And what age was this? What age was this?
was 30.
Well, it depends on when you say we met, but or when we were serious. I would say you were 33, 34.
That sounds
Okay,
good.
I got some time.
Yeah.
Well, see, and it's our second marriage for both of us, and that's a pretty accurate, I would say.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Top 3 lyricists.
The Bergmans, Marilyn and Alan Bergman. That's 2. John Hendricks.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with those, and I might add. I personally am a fan of Lorenz Hart, Rodgers and Hart, and actually Hammerstein for different reasons.
Okay.
I would add in there, and then some. Got to throw in some modern ones too, but there aren't that many modern ones that I really like. But I definitely put in Paul Simon, maybe.
How about favorite song to play with each other?
Favorite songs to do together? So many.
Yeah, there are so many.
So many.
But Time for Love.
Time for Love. It's one.
Time for love.
All right.
Yeah, that hook is like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
A lot of them would be ballads, I think.
Yeah.
Because they're just so, and I have to add that, not to say gratuitously or anything, but the way, like I was saying before, the phrasing, the way Ursula sings ballads is just so emotionally wrought and whatever, that there have been times when actually, I have to admit this, when I've be playing at a gig behind her and she's doing a particular ballad and I'm listening to it in the phrasing, when I've actually cried. And I remember Chris Collins said the same thing. So I was in good company.
Wow. What is in your current music rotation?
What is
Current music rotation. Like, what are you listening to nowadays?
Oh.
You mentioned the Latin stuff.
Yeah. Current.
It's hard to pick one thing, isn't it? Well, I think maybe, speaking for myself, but maybe both of us, older things. One thing is we get this, what would you call it? Rudy's thing. Is it like a newsletter? You know who Rudy Tusich is? Do you guys? He was he was a great jazz disc jockey back
Okay.
in the day, and he was also a drummer in the bebop era, and he worked with all the great bebop guys from Detroit. But he's our generation, or maybe he's older than us. I don't know. Anyway, but he has this thing that he's been doing for years, where because he's got an incredible library, as you might imagine. He was a DJ on the radio, jazz DJ, and he sends a couple of tunes. he calls it morning song or something, every single day of the year. He's been doing this for years, and it's all just classic stuff from his library. And it's so fun. You see this when you get up, it's in your email, and listening to all that stuff, that's one thing, you know. And, you know, besides select people, lately after Chick died, you know, going back and listening to a lot of his stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I've always listened to a lot of Keith Jarrett. I mean, for me, that's right up at the top of the. That's the top of the hill.
Yeah. Keith's a bad dude.
If you had a billboard anywhere in the world, what would it say?
Anywhere in the world, what would it say? I would love to find my parents' surviving relatives, because I've never met them.
Really wonderful.
That would be
A billboard.
if you're driving by, miss. But seriously, I have relatives. My father's brothers. I've never met them. I've never met. My father's mother was Irish. I don't know anything about his father, although I think one cousin said that he was Spanish. And I only met one of my father's siblings, and that was his sister who came to visit us. And he had brothers that actually passed for white, and I've never met any of them. And I really seriously would like to meet, while I'm still here, meet those relatives. I know they're the uncles and probably cousins, or some of them aren't here any longer, but there's got to be some relatives, some of their children and I really would like to meet them.
Yeah, like on Finding Your Roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, buddy?
Well, you say a billboard anywhere in the world, so like all over the world?
It could be.
Yeah. I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is make your leaders tell the truth.
I like it. Top piece of advice for up and coming young musicians.
Top piece of advice. Well, there's so many. I would say, of course, there's the thing that's trite but true is listen, listen, listen. Definitely the key to everything. For piano players, just taking one area, I would say, just for the sake of reharmonization and stuff, which is an important, part of it that I like to talk about. Explore every way you can move, through harmony, and use it and practice it, and then be real careful and throw a lot of it out and use it very judiciously, because not just with reharmonization, with everything having to do with playing, surprise is the thing. If you play too much, if you throw in every chord movement you can, it brings everything down, because there's the essence is the surprise. So that's one thing I would say.
Cool.
I would just tell the singers today to learn everything they can, to listen to all kinds of music, listen to some of the great singers that went before you, and love what you do.
Is there anything that you would like to leave with the audience before we depart from the table?
Some chocolate chip cookies. Well, wait, there's so much. It's hard to think. Now, if you're musicians, like Ursula said, listen and love what you do. Listen to all the stuff you can, and if you're fans, just support the music in every way, because it's not only an art form. It's one of the most important art forms that we've ever had, and everybody says, but it's true. It's pretty much the only original American art form, jazz music, and it pervades all other music. And I just say to listen and support all the live music, especially, that you can.
Yeah.
Also, where can people find you guys?
Right here.
In our
At
house.
this table.
Cooking, cleaning.
We're actually going to be. We haven't done
The Dirty Dog.
anything this year because of the virus, but we're going to be at the Dirty Dog in.
We don't have the date yet.
We don't have the exact date yet, but around September.
Oh, awesome.
Sweet.
And after the festival. And we'll be back around now that we've been fully vaccinated. And when stuff starts opening up, we plan on being around as much as possible. So I don't know exactly where, other than the thing coming up at the Dirty Dog. But we also, the group that we've been working with, excuse me, mostly lately, this group we really love working with, and it's Ursula plus quintet. So it's Ursula and myself, Dwight Adams and Keith Kaminsky are the two horn players, and Jeff Halsey on bass, and Dave Taylor on drums.
Yeah.
And I love
So
it.
we love that group, and we love them, not just as musicians,
But it's people.
but as
They're nice
people,
people.
because they're very supportive. And that makes a difference too. I might add that too, is for you musicians, especially young musicians. Sometimes, not all, because we know a lot of really wonderful young musicians, but always remember you're there to support what everybody's doing, and not every group might be your ideal group to work with or whatever, but it doesn't matter how good individually you are, you're there to make the group sound good, and if you take the gig, that's what you want to do. So that's really important. Then everybody make everybody comfortable, not just musically, but
Totally. Sweet guys. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was
Thank you.
awesome.
And I
Thank you.
got to
Our
tell you,
pleasure.
I'm very nervous about doing interviews or anything. I get very, but I enjoyed this. So.
Awesome. You guys
Seeing
were awesome.
your faces, your lovely faces.
yeah.
I'm glad you guys
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, no problem.
All right.
Well, this has been the MDetroit Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening, guys.
Check out our social media, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts.
And also make sure to like, share, and subscribe to all of our social medias. And we'll see you later.